Hello my friends and welcome back and happy Thursday to you. Since Christmas 24th of December I will be resting and I hope so will you. I will show you Ukrainian troops Christmas hello and Christmas tree right now. I'll steal 30 seconds of your day. Let's watch it. This is the Christmas tree in the countryside near Bakhmut. Dear friends, we congratulate you on the upcoming holidays. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Not so long ago we celebrated St. Nicholas Day. I wish you many more victories in the new year as well as strength and power to the armed forces and our best victory. We believe in you, believe in the armed forces, help the volunteers and drink coffee in the morning. The main Christmas tree of the country, thank you all for your help. I'm so glad to see this. Christmas is everywhere, like World War I Christmas truth. Well, this is not gonna happen here, definitely. There is no war where two sides hate each other so much as this war, but I'm glad to see Ukrainian side is celebrating Christmas none the least. An explosion in the fireworks, like in the New Year's. And we already sent Christmas presents, or actually I am delivering them in January because the fundraiser I started in December, you guys donated 180,000 in 5 days, and this is a Christmas present for the Ukrainian drone units because we're gonna give them a lot of drones, very capable drones, which are delivering presents to the Russian units, if you know what I mean. But now, my friends, I have a little advertisement for you. Check this out. This video is sponsored by My Heritage. Covering this war has made me revisit my heritage, my family's story, because there are generations of suffering, 2 centuries of suffering in my personal lineage, 2 centuries of suffering by the Russian occupation in my personal lineage. Half a year ago, I received a My Heritage DNA kit. I took the test, which was really easy, and I sent back the results, and then I found out where I was from, and that was really amazing. But today, I want to use My Heritage tools to show you a much darker side of my personal Estonian lineage. This was my grandfather, Ants, and thanks to My Heritage photo animation tool, we can see what he might have looked like. I do remember him, so this is pretty accurate actually, and you can do it with your relatives. This here is my grandfather, and I will follow my family tree to show that I am fighting the same fight my lineage has fought for 2 centuries. Father of Ants, my great-grandfather was Oskar Waldman, and as you can see, your great-grandfather, born 1900, Tamsi village, Pajusi, Põltsamaa, and died in Vorkuta prisoner camp 1946 because he was a hard-working Estonian farmer, and when the Soviets came in 1940, he was immediately declared an enemy of the state and deported to Vorkuta Gulag where he was starved to death by the Soviets. Then we go to his son, my grandfather, who at the time was 4 years old and was immediately deported as a 4-year-old child to Siberia. 2.5 weeks in a train, starving. He made it to Siberia, he was a strong boy, and he made it back when he was 8. And as you can see, he grew up to be a very strong Estonian man, being at the forefront and one of the frontmans of the singing revolution in the end of the 80s that freed Estonia from the Soviet occupation. My Heritage helped me reconnect to the fight against Russian tyranny in my personal Estonian family lineage. I fight the very same fight today that my roots and forefathers have fought for 2 centuries. You can use My Heritage to find out who are your forefathers. Click the link in the description below to sign up for a 14-day free trial and enjoy all of My Heritage's amazing features. If you decide to continue your subscription, you'll get a 50% discount. Thank you, My Heritage, for sponsoring today's video. In this video, my friends, you can see a Ukrainian soldier cutting open a cluster munition with a metal cutter. How do you call it? Metal cutter? Whatever it's called, it produces sparks, and I would be very afraid to do this, but these guys are professionals. They know what they're doing, and obviously I know it's not supposed to explode if you just cut it like that and beat it with a hammer, but still in my eyes this is whoa, I would never want to do this. But why are they doing it? Well, because this is defective cluster munition, it doesn't work, you cannot render it working anymore. Is it Russian or American? It doesn't really matter. Both sides' defective cluster munitions will be taken apart. All of these sub-munitions will be taken out and converted into You guessed it, kamikaze drone munitions or quadrocopter drone munitions to be dropped on infantry. So this here could mean, let's say, a whole platoon of KIAs on the Russian side, if you drop them effectively. Look at these, very deadly. The point of me showing this to you is nothing is wasted. Everything is converted into something else if it cannot be used in its original purpose anymore. An interesting fact came out recently in the Ukrainian drone army. 90% of drones Ukraine uses in a month, and I know the number Ukraine uses in a month, don't ask me how I know it, but I know it from sources, let's call it that. It's 30,000 per month. Ukraine is shooting at 30,000 FPV drones. 90% of these drones are brought in and bought in by volunteers such as myself and such as you guys, because you actually donated 180k for exactly that purpose. So you guys are actually 90% of what keeps this drone army going in Ukraine. Since it's no secret Ukraine has monetary issues, then volunteers do a lot. 90% out of 30,000, excuse me my math, but it's like 27,000, 27,000 drones every month come from volunteers, people like you. You have made this possible. So if any of you feel like I cannot do much with me being here alone in America or in Germany or wherever you are, then know that you combined give 90% of the destruction capability of Ukrainian drone army. One of the kamikaze drones can cost as less as 500 euros. Ours cost 700. To put that into comparison, the price of 155mm artillery shell produced in the EU, which is less precise than a kamikaze drone, cost 4,000 euros. So for the price of less accurate artillery shell, you can get almost 10 kamikaze drones. Another interesting statistic came out, Ukrainian drone commanders estimate, higher up drone commanders estimate that they need up to 200,000 drones per month. I mean, this is a crazy number, but this is necessary for complete destruction of Russian offensive capabilities. Every tank, every armored personnel vehicle, and every man. I don't think this is impossible because I know what I will be doing in 2024. I'll be going to the US, going to Canada, and we're doing a lot there to get drone production going and giving Ukraine these 200,000 drones. And I'll give you possibility to be a part of it. Don't worry, my friends. Together we can do great things for Ukraine. Hello my friends, we are setting up a logistics arm of Artur's army from United States of America to Estonia to Kiev, and I personally will be delivering all of the things. So what I ask from you, if you have a vehicle that you would like to personally donate to Armed Forces of Ukraine units, I can do it for you. We're setting that up in the United States of America. If you want to donate, please write to me. Email is on the screen. We'll find a way for it, and I personally will be driving it to Kiev, making a video on the way for you personally, and giving it to the unit you choose. Let's do it, my friends. Now, I want to open up how first-person view drones, kamikaze drones, really affect everything. We have talked about it so much, but still I feel like we haven't really opened up their essence. It's not only that they're cheap and their offensive capabilities, but also they save other weaponry. Let's take javelins, Stugnas, anti-tank guided munitions, weaponry. Everything from the West that is designed to take out armored vehicles, for example, is always in a limited quantity. Now that Ukraine is very heavily using kamikaze drones, it takes about 2 to 3 small cheap kamikazes to immobilize a Russian tank, and maybe 1 or 2 more to destroy it fully after Russians abandon it. That is what, 5,000 euros altogether money. Now one javelin costs 100,000, which does the same job, obviously takes out the tank, but the return of interest on the drones is so much higher. Also, when you use these drones, which is much cheaper, you have this extra javelin now because it was not used. And in this way, the additional usage of these kamikaze drones saves javelins, Stugnas, AT-4s, Carl Gustavs, RPGs, everything. Actually, Ukrainian stockpiles of these short-range infantry-carried anti-tank missiles or weaponry has been increasing lately thanks to the heavy usage of kamikaze drones to destroy Russian armored vehicles. So these drones not only destroy, but they also logistically and Economically, they are the most cheapest, cost-effective way to destroy, while saving other weaponry for other purposes that they are actually intended for. Let's take the case of artillery. Since the West did not provide Ukraine with capable air force, or any air force at all actually, and expected Ukraine to fight according to NATO doctrine, which includes the heavy use of air superiority and artillery, Ukraine had to make up for it by using artillery more extensively to make up for the lack of air force, meaning it will lead to a very extensive artillery shell shortage. Artillery is not meant to be used that extensively, but since Ukraine doesn't have air force, they have no other option, otherwise men will just die. That's how simple it is. So they have to, thus using up more shells than NATO countries intend to be used up according to their doctrine, but they don't think that we didn't give them enough to fight with. No planes, no air force. In this case, again, FPV drones come into play since they are much cheaper and easier to produce than artillery shells, and they're even more precise, believe it or not, if they're not jammed. What you're seeing in this video, my friend, is in the most direct form meat being prepared for the meat grinder. This is how minced meat is done. This is a pure cooking video right here. It's being prepared mentally. I mean, if you cook in the kitchen, you don't have to prepare your meat mentally. But in this case, you have to. These are Russian soldiers praying. Russia being the most fake Christian country in the world. It's not a Christian country. If anybody believes that, they have unfortunately fallen into the trap of Russian propaganda. Russia state and Putin and the leadership does not share or live by any Christian values, but they do advertise themselves as such. So unfortunately, I have to break this illusion. There's nothing connected to Christianity in Russia. It is a fake, distorted view, extreme view of Christianity where priests are blessing Kalashnikovs and nuclear weapons and doing this to the troops, saying you do this for God, go and sacrifice yourself for the Tsar because that's what God wants. That's what's going on in here. If you notice, they're doing the cross. This is, in their eyes, a Christian ritual, which is totally fake and made up for propaganda purposes. This is a suicide sect, a suicide cult for Putin. That's what it is. By the time this video goes up, I would say 90% of these men are dead or injured. They're casualties. My friends, you remember a few videos ago I showed you Madar, the legendary Ukrainian famous drone commander who is responsible for most eliminations for the Russian armed vehicles and personnel. Well, he lashed out to the Western media for chasing clicks more than Ukrainian victory, and chasing clicks in a way that sacrifices OPSEC sometimes and sacrifices Ukrainian reputation. Madar brought out that Ukrainian drone operators in Kherson are so successful in destroying Russian equipment and manpower that Russians are resulting to only mean they have available, because they cannot fly choppers, planes or anything that would shoot to Ukrainian liberated side. They're using glide bombs, which can be released about 10 to 15 kilometers from the active fighting front line, and then they glide. And they're using FAB 1500, which weigh 1.5 tons. Huge bombs, like unbelievably massive bombs. And they're not very accurate, but since they do such a big kaboom, they don't need to be. It's an area weapon, basically. And Madar says that his drone operators are so successful that there is actually a hunt for them with FAB 1500. So if you know that your men are so good that Russia puts these huge bombs out only to get these guys, then this is what New York Times should be focused on, not the other. I don't even want to mention what they wrote because I don't want to give any credit or credibility to it. It's bad. It's not the way for Ukrainian victory. And I will say this again, New York Times and other Western press that live because of the freedom of press in the West, these values are fought to the West by the forefathers who fought and democracy evolved. Well, now democracy system is being attacked by Russia and Ukraine is the front man in this war. So Ukraine is fighting as much for the freedom of press of New York Times as New York Times is degrading Ukrainian reputation by posting stuff like that. Now, I do have to say this, Ukrainian Marines holding the Krinky bridgehead, which is over the Kherson River, a small area where Ukrainians are liberated and have defensive positions and are grinding down Russian offensive capabilities in the weakest front of Russia. Ukrainian Marines have morale issues there because they're mostly isolated from their troops. The only way is with boats over the Kherson River. It's cold, it's wet, moist. You are attacked from 3 sides and with glide bombs. So I have to say the situation is very bad for the Russians, but it's not much better for the Ukrainians in the area. Casualties are high. Morale, I hate to say it, is also low for the Ukrainian side. Now, my friends, we'll talk about North Korean artillery shells. Tatarigami's team from Twitter already in November had concluded from satellite imagery that in 2 months, September to November, North Korea had supplied Russia with 500,000 artillery shells, and more were coming, so by now it could be close to 1 million. But now we have Russian officers and artillery officials especially giving feedback in public Telegram channels about these artillery shells. See, they are different. Produced in Russia, the quality is bad, but it's okay. Produced in Europe, the quality is excellent. Produced in North Korea, well, it's really bad. It's actually dangerous. These officers complain that if they shoot these 120mm mortars from the barrels, there is a huge risk actually that it explodes in the barrel, it falls short, it doesn't detonate, there's a lot of dots, they're very inaccurate. They're actually a huge safety risk for the operators of the mortar, for the artillery crews, and they have had issues when it explodes, and actually it has resulted in deaths and injuries. So nobody really wants to use them, but they have to because they don't have other choices, so they do. But it degrades morale. And now I will talk about the process of Russian officers declaring their men dead after sending them to meat assaults, after preparing them like we saw on a video and then sending them. Let's say 90% of them are casualties, like I said, you know, from the previous video, 10% comes back. What happens to the remaining 90? Well, the officers don't want to declare them dead because there has been instances where a huge portion of them is actually a POW, prisoner of war in Ukraine, and they come out alive later. So the officer who pronounced them dead is now responsible in front of Rosgvardia, the Russia's army internal police, and they will be punished. Since Russian army has to pay the families of the fallen soldiers, and they have paid, and now the soldier is alive, it's a huge problem. So what the officers now do to protect themselves is they don't pronounce men dead, they don't even pronounce them lost. They know they're dead or just POW somewhere or in the no man's land. They don't do anything. These men are legally stuck in the system, dead or alive or injured. Russian officers are waiting until an official huge offensive starts at some point from some area, and then they pronounce them dead. Because of that offensive, it gives the context. And if they turn out alive later, it's understandable because it's a huge offensive, a lot of men involved, and it's understandable. So they don't want to take the risk, meaning the relatives also don't get the money because the deceased soldier of the Russian army is not pronounced dead. So they linger in between. And my friends, one more time before Christmas, I'll do it. Butchering of the patron names. Tomorrow is the last time before Christmas, but today we also do it. And I'll say your name in a way you've never heard it before, and it will haunt you even in the Christmas morning. Douglas R. Todd. Edvins Paradniks, Ted Mazek, Erling Arvidsson, Alvin D. Dickens. And Alvin D. Dickens became the biggest patron I have right now. So thank you very much, my friend. You have really given me a security. I can actually relax a bit on Christmas and then come back with a bang and focus all my energy towards Ukraine. You guys actually make that happen. Thank you. Until my next update, which for the last time before Christmas is tomorrow, and then we'll continue from the 27th of December. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.